All right, quick lecture here on the Martin Luther King Jr. Letter from Birmingham jail. And I guess a few things to keep in mind here on some of what the good doctor here is getting across. Would be essentially that he's. I mean, the macro argument here, obviously, right, is it's almost beneath the argument is it is time for a change, right? Because that's what he's sort of arguing against. But the even deeper, I think, meaning is of course it's time, and of course black people are equal to white people, and I would say. Part of the, I mean, just a brilliant piece, and um, I would say he's not just arguing for like Martin Luther King Jr. may have been, again, some the myth, especially in all of you came up, hearing this from grade school on up, right? Martin Luther King Jr. was the, nonviolence aspect of Martin Luther King Jr., which is absolutely real, but also can be kind of conflated with a timidity or a sort of stoicism, or a passivity. I think peace, love kind of passivity that that Martin Luther King Jr. didn't really possess. He went out of his way to induce confrontation, actually, and was not afraid of it at all, and was actually unbelievably wily, especially the way he used the TV cameras and things like that. Um, he was almost unbelievably savvy and put his people in harm's way purposely. I mean, there were a few mayors, for example, out there who actually handled the protest a lot better, right? And they weren't sounding, that a lot of these videos we've all seen, right, with the dogs attacking them or turning the fire hose on them, and mayors were much more savvy and didn't do that. He didn't stick around with his people protesting in those places. He pulled them off of there and put them into places like down south, where people like Bull Connor and. Boy, if you've never seen anything with Bull Connor, I would. You can go YouTube. I type him into YouTube. Bull Connor. Sometimes he was like the almost a cartoon drawing of a southern hick racist sheriff. But he'd sit there. And he was fat and he's fucking like he'd almost had gravy stains on his shirt. He sat chopping on a cigar. And he would look right at it. And by the way, he had nothing because it was first of all, black people tried to vote. They would literally maybe be hung from trees. I mean, there was a serious intimidation in Alabama against voters there. So he had never had to worry about getting voted out of office. And so he would, but what he didn't realize, though, and what Dr. King did realize, was the power of television. And that John F. Kennedy in the White House and everyone else is we're going to be seeing some of these things. And man, he played Bull Connor like a piano. And again, Connor would sit there, stare into, and again, this is his, he was saying things like, and he would say that, he literally used the N-word, the word nigger over and over again. He was like, y'all think you coming down here to help us with our nigger problem? I'll tell you, our niggers were just fine to you Yankee Edge. They just came down here and started riling them up, and he would smirk, and again, he would use the word, that word, right, over and over and over again, and sort of, because he knew nothing, but you know what, again, he didn't really understand the national pressures that were going to come to bear on him, and again, Martin Luther King Jr. used was kind of brilliant, actually, the way he used them. And again, he was non-violent. He was not, by any stretch, non-confrontational. And you see a lot, this piece, which again is just gorgeously rendered. I mean, the lyrical language. I mean, an English geek like me. I mean, he writes as well as most literary. The literature we'll read toward the end of the semester. Writers wrote. I mean, it's just there's a majesty, a command of the English language. Also showing off an extremely competent Western education. He knows all about the founding fathers. He knows all about ancient Greece. All these sort of touchstone threshold sort of moments and societies and elements that make up the rich canon of Western civilization. He can kind of pull these pull the references, from whether it's from the Bible or ancient Greece or again, 1776 America. He's using them over, and what amazing social proof that is from the beginning. Speaking, again, not just calling forth other white folks, but the saints and almost religious, literally religious in some cases, and quasi sort of religious, like with the founding fathers of the U.S. and Aristotle and people like that, figures of the Western tradition to back, to reinforce and use as supporting evidence for his claims. It's just a gorgeously architectured piece, and again, he takes every point they make, one by one and just pounds them. I mean, he overwhelms the arguments. Now, one of the reasons I would suggest he's able to do this, by the way, this does not happen very often. He really was completely right. They really were completely wrong. That doesn't happen, all that often. But boy, he took full advantage of it. And so I guess maybe the first thing, there's a few things we can deal with here. I would say thing, or attribute one to what makes this a great piece would be the argument itself. And he'll start out as, whether part of the argument against King and his people was they were outside agitators. They should let the locals handle this. And he has no problem, right? Kind of coming up, I was invited here, he says, right? And again, as he's doing that, he's also reminding them, and again, now he's addressing clergymen. He's addressing clergymen who, for the most part, when they're going on television or they're being interviewed by newspaper reporters and talking about him, they're all saying variations of, "We respect Dr. King. We support his movement, but now is not the time," or "he shouldn't break the law," or this really isn't his place. The local people should. They're all some sort of variation of that. We love him, but things, and he is not going to let them off the hook on that, because his point is, no. You either support what we're doing or you don't support, and don't. And we'll get to the wait part of it a little bit later, but don't keep telling us to wait here and act like you're really on our side. No, you either are or you're not. No, you don't get to sit on the fence on this. I know you don't get to parse it like that, where you say you're really for me, but you're picking some, because of this one thing or two or three things that we're doing, we really are wrong. No, all of this really is implying that if you're disagreeing with me in any way, you're saying that black people are inferior to white people, which is something, again, these clergymen are not, are trying so hard not to say, and going out of their way to publicly look like they're not saying. And again, the first one, that they're outside agitators. That's it. Because don't tell us we're out. We were invited here. He says, right? Invited, and we weren't. Who invited us? Your citizens. It was the black citizens, though, right? Not the. And so for you, that's kind of the implication, right? So bam, right off the bat, he not only, again, pushes back against their argument about being because it was citizens that had invited them, but citizens. Maybe you don't consider them citizens, right? But yes, they are too. We have, his an addendum to that was, I'm the leader of an organization here, the National Coalition of Colored People. That's we have ties here. We have an organization in this city. We are not even outsiders, right? That would have been, where else did he go? And what about, by the way, should any of us, this is America, and it's a national thing we're talking about. How about you talked about the interrelatedness. Here, I'll read a little piece here. And again, notice the quality of just the eloquence of his language. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Maybe the most famous line of the piece there. And so no, I can't be considered an outsider if I'm America. So he goes even further. He keeps going. Now that's the third specific thing he's going against. Just that's this one argument, right? And he even goes into sort of sub arguments. I'm not going to get into them all here, but you can read it. Go back and reread it to get those. But again, he just keeps. Going, boom, 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 just an avalanche of sort of a proof against what he's saying, or against what their arguments, excuse me. Then we get to the wait part of it, right? And then his points. Wait, we did wait. Right? We waited. We gave them. There was supposed to be a date when they were supposed to take the no color. We don't serve colors here. Those signs that were in the store windows. You know what? They're still in the store windows. We were lied to. We waited until after the election of Mr. Connor, and nothing changed. And so you broke your promises to us. And then wait, like you think we're being rash, and then he goes and he says he gives the 4-step purification process all of his people go through in order to train themselves not to react. If the cops, people spit on them and hit them, all of which happens, right? Or if the cops start getting rough on them, they've all been well trained. And boy, he shows step by step how they train their people. So again, there's nothing hasty about this. Then there's the part about the law. The law still is the law. If you want to change the law, you have to do it the right way. You can't just. And he said, no, that is that there are just and there are just laws. And there are unjust laws, and then that's what he used. Didn't Christ break Rome's law? Boy, and he's right about that. And hard for these clergymen, even the Jewish ones, who at least respect Jesus Christ, even if they don't believe he was the Son of God, to go there, right? And an unjust law is out of harmony with God's law. And again, he's appealing to their highest, to the highest. Authority, any of these men have, right? They're all they're all men of the cloth. Let's see, and then he goes to a more subtle argument. Another reason this is all segregation is wrong. Because there's always going to be a minority and a majority, and the majority will always impose its will over the minority, and the separateness is something that's wrong. It's sinful. Just doing it is sinful. There is no, separate, different but equal. There's just no such thing, and the proof is everywhere down south, right? The water fountains are less than, and by the way, we're still living with some of this, right? It's not. I think it's actually more class-based, money-based, and income-based than it is race-based. But it often, especially say in northeastern cities, kind of ends up being a little bit race-based anyway, right? Because of the way the racial, the economic, socioeconomics break down up here. And it gives one of his great lines. I'll paraphrase a little bit here. It gives the oppressor an undeserved sense of superiority, and the oppressed an undeserved sense of inferiority. Right? And then he finally drops Adolf Hitler of all people. Right? Hitler never technically did anything illegal, did he? Right? And boy, again, impossible really to push back against it. He's very good at coming up with these things. There really isn't an argument, or at least not a sensible one, against much of what he's saying. You have to you can't hit it head on. You're going to have to kind of, but that doesn't, you're going to have to really start doing some cognitive gymnastics, to get around a lot of these arguments. And again, this is what happens when you actually are completely on the right and the other side is completely on the wrong. It doesn't, it's a rare thing that happens, but he had it on his side. He realized that. He was unbelievably smart about it. And again, a lot of what he was going after here, and he will get to that, is the and again, are we extremists? Was Christ an extremist for love? He says, right? He's got right about that. Were the founding fathers? Was George Washington an extremist? Was Abraham, bringing up all the great men, right? The revered men of this country and of Western civilization in general? He brings up Aristotle, and again, interesting. What a brilliant guy to bring up. Both, he's not just one of the great original sort of Greek philosophers, but again, the Christ. What did Christ do? Right, his most famous act. He was, basically he was murdered, right, by his own, people. And well, I guess maybe Pontius Pilate wasn't really his people, but you get the drift. People he was there to save, and he sacrificed himself and absorbed, the sins of all men. Right, took upon him, and went on the cross and died for it. But then bringing up Aristotle. Aristotle, one of Aristotle, famously, if you remember how he died, he was sentenced. He was accused of and convicted of, very unfairly, corrupting Athens' youth, because he basically would out-argue all the powers that be and kind of pissed a lot of the men in power off. So he kind of trumped up charges with a trumped up court. But again, he'd been arguing much of his life for stability and democracy and the importance of law and order and the court system. And so when it went against him, even though it was a bullshit thing, and even though, by the way, they sentenced him to death. That was the sentence. And no one was really going to try to carry that sentence out. The guards were instructed to leave the doors and everything open so he could just walk out. What he was really being was out, but he wasn't ever going to be able to come back to his home of Athens. And instead of taking the easy way out, he's like, no, I've been defending this court much of my life. What are my students going to think of me if I go against it now, even though we all know this is unjust? And he takes a cup of hemlock, which is poisoned, and drinks. There's a famous painting of this in a chalice where he drinks it down, and he sacrifices himself for his beloved Athens, right? Okay, so Martin Luther King Jr., who again had a very healthy ego, aligning himself with the Christ figure himself, and Aristotle as somebody who by the way, he is going to be a martyr, isn't he? He's got, I think, 5 years of life left before an assassin bullet catches him on 4th of April 1968, and in a hotel in I think Memphis. And he's sort of seeing it forward, and again he's comparing himself to biblical prophets, but again it is an unbelievably effective piece, the last two things I think I'll cover. One, I'm going to get back to the weight part of it in a second, but also there is, again, he's not just claiming, I don't think, not only are we equal, black men to white men and women, maybe sometimes we're even superior. In fact, maybe I'm superior, right? And boy, this opening is just so brilliant, and it's so subtle, and it's doing a lot more than it seems. I'll just read this quick. While confined here in Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling our present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom, if ever, do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all of the criticisms that crossed my desk, my secretaries would be engaged in little else in the course of the day, and I would have no time for constructive work. But since I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill, and that your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I would like to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. And again, it just seems like if you're not paying it, or if you don't realize what's the and you'd be forgiven. But I wouldn't expect, none of my students really get this. I wouldn't expect it to. I got to earn my money somehow, right? There really is a subtext going on underneath there. And again, while confined here in Birmingham City Jail, boom, that first thing. Everyone reading, those men he's addressing, they know he doesn't. No one thinks Martin Luther King Jr. deserves to be in jail. So again, I'm writing you this letter from jail while you're reading it in your comfortable studies and homes, right? So be careful. And again, that's a moral superiority. I'm out here fighting for justice and suffering for justice. Where are you, men of the cloth, who are supposed to be sticking up for the disenfranchised and Jesus's people, right? The underdogs, the ones who are being oppressed, the ones who are again disenfranchised and not getting their fair share. You're men of the cloth. I'm actually living it. You know, I'm more like Christ, the man you worship. None of you are, right? Boom, right off that in the first the little sentence, and then calling our activities unwise. And seldom, if ever, do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. But again, now he's sort of establishing what a huge figure he already is. And I'm telling you, if you go read the names of the men he addressed this to, you won't recognize any of them. Because history's forgotten. The only reason anyone remembers any of these men is because they happen to be in the letter to Martin Luther King Jr. Other than families and things. Maybe there'd be their churches would, I don't know. But it's because they got their names got put into his letter, right? And again, seldom is better, but almost like kind of giving him there's a certain condescension coming here, right? A little pat on the head. And again, if you're giving somebody a pat on the head, you're in an elevated position, and then they're in a lower position. You can't pat them on the head like that, right? He then, if I answered all of these screws, my secretaries, boy, even that, subtle but brilliant, secretaries, right, plural. I guarantee you, none of these other guys have more than one secretary, but he needs more than one. Right? Because he's a much bigger, larger, more important cultural figure, and a much more important man than they are, and he is letting them know it, in a very sort of subtle, kind of, to them there. And I would have no, if I answered all these criticisms, my secretaries, most of them, would be, have nothing else to do. Again, also showing just how much he's dealing with and suffering. But since I feel you're men of genuine goodwill, I will try to answer. And then he's going to then do what he does, which is just annihilate, basically crush all their arguments into powder. The last thing I will do here is one of the great compound sentences in the history, in the history of American rhetorical writing, and maybe any rhetorical writing. Where am I? Wait, I had it. I'm sorry. Give me a second, guys. Here. All right. This is going to take a little while. This is all going to be one sentence. Keep in mind, right? Exquisitely punctuated. You will not have trouble following this sentence at all. It starts, by the way, it has a short declarative sentence right before it. So if you want to read along, and it is worth reading along if you want to pause this and go find it. Let's see. There's about 1, 2. Let me see if I can count them. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12. I think it's the 13th paragraph. I had to count that very quickly. And the paragraph begins with a shorter sentence. I guess it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say wait. So again, it starts with I guess it is easy. Look for there. The next sentence is what I'm going to read here, and it is a masterpiece. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your brothers and your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, brutalize, even kill your black brothers and sisters with impunity, when you have seen the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted, your speech stammering, as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see tears welling up in her little eyes when she is told that Funtown has closed to colored children, and see the depressing clouds of inferiority begin to form in her little mental sky, and see her begin to distort her little personality by unconsciously developing bitterness toward white people. When you have to concoct an answer for your 5-year-old son asking in agonizing pathos, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you. When you are humiliated day in, day out by the nagging signs reading white men and colored. When your first name becomes nigger, your middle name becomes boy, however old you are. When your last name becomes John. When your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs. When you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro, living constantly a tiptoe stance, never quite knowing what to expect next, and plagued with inner fears and outer resentments, when you're forever fighting a degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. And boy, what an unbelievable sort of avalanche of a sentence. And again, let's see look at what he's doing in this sentence, right? He's saying, "Are you telling us to wait? Maybe this is why." And boy, the proofs. And again, just a clinic on the fundamentals of good writing, right? Airtight cage of poverty, smothering in an airtight. What an image, and you could feel it, right? And talking about and again, the proofs he's using here as examples, right? To support his, see the tears, the clouds of inferiority beginning to form in the mental skies of a little 6-year-old girl, right? I mean, who doesn't love 6-year-old girls? Picking the most innocent people, right, to really tug on the heartstrings there, and again, doing it in this really specific, beautiful figurative language, but also dark, right? Throwing the N-word in there, brutalized. I mean, again, just the specificity, and the how vibrant this language is, and how it really nothing just seems like anything. It goes by, right? And it's just clause after clause after clause, a lot of semicolons. But again, nothing you have any trouble following throughout this whole long sentence. And again, let's see. But when you have seen, and that is the opening sort of phrase, right? But when you have seen, and then he just goes on and on and on. And again, let's remember what he's addressing, right? You're saying wait, and then what does he do to his readers? Again, which are his audiences, those, especially the white moderate, which is who he's most frustrated by, the people who say they're on his side, or the majority of people, but won't go through. He has to rouse them because they don't really want to deal with the trouble that the racists are going to give them, which is why they're staying on the sidelines, because they're not really suffering, the worst of it. And it's just people, are cowardly by nature. If they can avoid troubles, it's human nature to do so. These are the people and he's angry. He's angry with them, and they're not really. They say they're sort of empathized. They're not. And now he's going to say, okay, you're saying for us to wait, and then he starts his sentence, and then he makes them wait to finish it, right? And while they're waiting, they're going to have to listen to all these horrific specifics on what's real, what he and his brethren are really suffering, right? And exactly the things they're suffering. And they have to. I'm sorry. You want to. You don't. These are people who are having trouble feeling what I'm feeling. Here, I'm going to do my best here to make you fucking feel what I'm feeling, right? And what a job he does. And then finally, the last, and he was like, maybe then you'll understand why we find it difficult to wait. All right, after making them wait all the way through that sentence, it's so layered with meaning. It's so beautifully executed. It's just, I mean, if you're a fucking English teacher, man, that really is as good as it gets. And anyway, that is the great Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. This lecture went on probably longer than most of them were going to. Couldn't stop myself from talking about this one or him. All right, I hope that sheds some light on things, and we'll have a quick class on this Tuesday. All right, guys, we'll see you.